for their support of Zennie62 Media's coverage of the virtual Democratic National Convention. And without any further ado, I want to introduce the man who has been my boss and mentor for so many years. First, when I was actually hired me to be economic advisor to him as the mayor of Oakland from 1995 to 1999. And then when I started Sports Business Simulations, he was on my advisory board as well. Actually, Elihu, do you realize it was because of you that I discovered VloggerCon and dived heavily? I was already doing vlogging, but because you introduced me to Jeffrey of Balto TV, and he invited me to join them at VloggerCon and basically help get in so I wouldn't have to pay $600 because of that. But because of that, that changed my life. So I have you to thank for that, because folks, I was basically showing him what I was doing, what I discovered with YouTube and Blip TV. And then he said, hold on a second. He pushed the button and Jeffrey Heyman came in. And Jeffrey says, are you going to VloggerCon? And I said, what's that? And that's when my life changed. So I just want to mark that. All that really created, in a sense, what we're doing today. And of course, Bill Carroll is my longtime friend who has covered the NFL draft with me for so many years and is in Chicago, but has more than a passing knowledge of politics, including Chicago politics. And
especially full contact politics.
That's right. Right. So full contact politics is something that both of you men are more familiar with. I think Elihu steeped in it because he's worked in it than anybody else. A few other people that I know. Elihu, though, I want to talk about the DNC convention. And what are your thoughts going into tonight's first night in this virtual convention?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a whole new experience. First time they've had a convention virtual. Usually there's 25, 30, 50,000 people who are either in or around the convention. This time you're talking about everybody being at different sites around the country. How this will come off from a production standpoint, from a viewing standpoint, remains to be seen. But I'm obviously optimistic and hopeful this is going to be an experience. It's going to be, quite frankly, trend-setting. And maybe it'll set the stage for future conventions. We'll find out.
What do you think about how this is going to impact local races? And what I mean by that, more this position of having the campaign virtually, where as opposed to you're a practitioner of the traditional politics where you get the lawn signs, you do the walking, and how can you expect to win in this environment? Isn't this produce a bit of a challenge that is scary? It scares me.
Well, first of all politics is local, as you know. And when people are separated by space and time, sometimes very difficult to connect the dots, put together the kind of an organization that comes about when people are actually in touch with one another, feeling the energy, feeling the vibe, kind of feeling the spirit. In this case, people are in remote locations. Hopefully they'll get that spirit and that vibe from outstanding speeches. You have great speakers in the Democratic Virtual Convention, and whether or not they're able to connect with an audience that's in living rooms and in offices, and again, throughout the country, remains to be seen. But again, I'm optimistic there'll be that kind of connection and that kind of energy will come out of the convention that will allow people to go ahead and do the work at the local level that will not only enhance the vote, but also the outcome.
What are you most looking forward to seeing in this convention, boss, either tonight or through the week?
I think everybody's looking to see Michelle Obama. I mean, she's a star attraction, certainly from the standpoint of the energy, probably the most admired woman in the country, if not the world. I think she'll bring a certain kind of a vibe, a certain kind of energy that hopefully will be contagious, and everybody will catch that energy, that positivity that defines Michelle Obama. If that's the case, we'll be off to a great start, and we'll see that it carries itself throughout Thursday to the actual agreement and the assumption of the nomination by Joe Biden.
And they talk about Kamala Harris, and we haven't had a chance to talk about someone that we both have known for some time. You'll end up more than me, but I go back to when she ran for DA, and I went to her first event at Delancey Street, which Delancey Street in those days was like the second home of the Democratic Party locally. But talk about Kamala Harris.
Well, look, I've known Kamala about 25 years. The last 16 have been absolutely amazing. Since she first ran for district attorney in San Francisco, to obviously her run from the state attorney general position to her race for the Senate, and now the vice presidency, she's been on a meteoric pace for 16 years, continuing to make moves, continuing to be relevant, and continue to be a star. You got to give credit when you see someone who has been able to maintain that constant ascendancy in politics. And, you know, she's going to be a heartbeat away from the presidency if she wins this election in November. And I think you got to give credit to a young woman who's come out of the Bay Area, come out of Oakland in specific, and now is achieving great things at the national and hopefully international level as well. So you got to be excited about her unique position as a candidate, as well as the unique vantage point she brings as someone of color coming out of the Bay Area.
You know what people don't talk about, I was trying to get them on the show, but how she's got this family of politically involved folks, like this Tony West, who's been, in fact, when I started out, as I ran, this is how stupid I was in Bill. I started out as running for a delegate, but guess when I started? I started the day before the vote. Okay. All right. By contrast, Tony West had been, folks, if you don't understand how this works or know, you can actually be a local delegate, but you have to run your own election. And he had a campaign, he had Leah, he had all these great folks involved. And they were the ones who actually got me involved in the Obama campaign. But then I interviewed Tony and got to know his people, went to all their fundraisers. It seems like over there on the other side of Lake Merritt. They are, to me, the glue that holds her together. I don't mean she's falling apart, but she's got this, you know, the nation talks about, rightly so, I think, Black sororities and how AKA has helped her. But what no one talks about, I think because they're not local, but even local folks don't talk about it, are her real family. You know, I don't mean her LA family. I mean Tony, and then of course there's Eric Katzer, and you know, a lot of really accomplished people of color, but Black and women too, very powerful women who really keep her together. What do you say?
I remember Tony West ran for the state assembly from San Jose and lost the election. He was the deputy attorney general then in the state of California. And then obviously her sister Maya, who's been a policy expert, they've been her backbone when it comes to her candidacy for every office that she's run for. And they've been in the shadows. They never tried to get in front. They never tried to be obvious or loud. They've always been in a supportive role. When you are running for office, particularly at the highest levels, having that kind of support in the background, not trying to overshadow, but being there to give you the confidence and the sense that you do have that kind of support, I think makes all the difference for anyone running for office, particularly at the national level.
Hey, Bill, you have a question for Mayor Harris, by the way?
Sure. There's been a lot of concern by some quote unquote progressives about her credentials. But when I see that she's worked with people like Latifah Simon and many others, these are not people that would ally themselves with someone that they thought was not serious about addressing progressive issues. When someone says they're concerned about her credentials in terms of being a progressive or working with progressives, how do you answer that kind of question?
Well, it's really simple. You know, progressive in California is different than progressive than a lot of people think. I mean, she was listed by Trump as the most liberal member of the U.S. Senate. You know, you can't catch a break. You're the most liberal or the most conservative. People put labels on people. What you have to look at is her social consciousness. The fact that she was a prosecutor was the fact that she wanted to do justice, not that she wanted to put people in jail. And she had all kind of programs that I speak to her progressive values. She was against the death penalty. She supported working with people in the diversion program and the homeless. I mean, those are creative programs. In 2004, she was the district attorney. Yes, she was a prosecutor, but a prosecutor also puts bad people in jail, not just people who are in fact doing positive things or people who are nonviolent drug offenders. So I think people have to look at her record and understand she was trying to protect the community from violent offenses. She was trying to do justice for the homeless, for those who were on drugs, and for those who frankly were disadvantaged. I think she has an outstanding record as a prosecutor who is fair and who is interested in justice. That ought to be the concern. Like somebody who's a police officer saying, well, you were a cop, so you're automatically disqualified. No, you want good people to be in law enforcement. You want good people to be district attorneys. If all you want is the evildoers to be in positions of authority, that sort of negates the obvious possibility of progress and improvement. So I have no idea what people are talking about when they don't think she's progressive. She certainly has had a progressive record as a legislator, as a senator, and I have no idea what they're talking about other than they want to put a label on her. She was the district attorney and attorney general.
Hey, having heard what you said, boss, it seems to me that Biden selecting her as his running mate is almost a kind of a weird political head fake. In other words, she's got this law and order resume by some, but she has this progressive resume by others. And I think, and I wanted your comment on this, it seems to me that Biden perhaps knew that the Republicans and Trump wouldn't know what to do with that.
Well, two things. One, she was the obvious choice. I mean, she'd run for president. She had a pretty good following, although her candidacy failed for a number of different reasons. But she at least had stood the test of running for national office. Running nationally is no joke. I mean, you subject yourself to all kind of verbal attacks, to all kind of spurious attacks, and she withstood that to a great extent. She's already been battle tested, if you will. The other thing that I would tell you about Kamala is that she draws fire. She draws fire from Trump. He hasn't attacked Biden in the last week. He's been so focused on her women's status, her minority status, her status as a senator. He has not had the time to go after Biden. So the fact that she's been able to draw the fire away from the presidential candidate in and of itself is a victory. She was the obvious choice. I think she's doing everything she was expected to do. And if she continued to follow the lead of the president, not try to outshine the president, but stay in her, or the presidential nominee, I should say, but stay in her lane, I think she will be successful, not only in her candidacy, but also if she's the vice president-elect.
Yeah, I want to welcome our man in Florida, Eric. How you doing, man? Eric, meet my boss, former boss. I always call him boss. Former Mayor Elihu Harris of Oakland, who should have been a 3-term mayor of Oakland, but
I was smart. If I'd been stupid, I would have run again.
Gentlemen, good evening. I was backstage listening to everything, and I'm very honored to be a part of this collective group right here. You gentlemen bring so much education to someone like me who needs to be continually educated on, the policies and the legislation. And I heard what Mr. Harris, what you were saying about Kamala, and that's kind of to the point, where I feel when it comes to her being the pick by Vice President Biden. Someone said to me, you need the right people on Capitol Hill, but you need those people who are not only educated, but who have that experience level. And I feel that she definitely has that. So I'm excited to see her become the first Black vice president woman in our country. So
the other thing I would tell you all is this.
And our first Asian vice president.
Yes,
right,
yes,
right.
yes.
Although nobody would know it to look at her.
right, exactly.
But here's the deal. We have a binary choice. Either Trump and Pence or Harris and Biden. I mean, name your pick. Even if you think she's poison, one is fatal poison, and the other make you a little sick. You make your choice. You're going to commit suicide, or you're going to try to keep alive and be able to make improvements. She at least has a floor. She has a morality. She has a concern and a compassion that is obviously not met on the Trump-Pence side. So, when people are criticizing her, okay, look at what the reality is. You're either going to get she and Biden, or you're going to get Trump and Pence. If you can stomach Trump and Pence for 4 more years, we have no conversation, because you're an idiot, and I don't really talk to people who are that stupid.
Hey, and I want to look up on that because MSNBC, it seemed like there were this rash of polls that I'll get to in another second, but MSNBC said that in their poll, 58% of the people that were polled, 56%, excuse me, were actually going to select the Biden-Harris ticket because they don't like Trump. So it's more a matter of, oh my God, they're ready to get on with it. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I don't think anybody has ever seen anything like Donald Trump before. Donald Trump has no real ideology. He has no real loyalty other than to himself. He's a misogynist. He's a liar. He's a racist. I mean, every bad thing you could think about a person, he demonstrates on a daily basis. And for people who are going to rationalize his lack of character, and more importantly, his lack of compassion for the poor of any ethnic identity, to me, it's just kind of crazy. I've never seen anyone who has been as lacking in principle as Donald Trump. And for the person who wrote the book, it was all a lie. I think it's really true. He has, in 10 months, he's transformed what we thought of as the Republican Party into being an amalgamation of idiots. And that's a sad reality. I've had respect for Republicans, even when I disagreed with them, because I at least thought they had some principle. They were for things like a balanced budget. They were for free trade. They may have been for less government. And I thought there ought to be more government that was doing things to help people out of their circumstances, certainly out of their poverty. But these guys, they're all over the map. You got white evangelicals who are just for him because he's against a choice. You got other people who like him because he's pro-business and big business in particular. You name your poison, he is giving you that pill. And if you want to swallow it, you'll get closer to whatever you want to be than you were before. So I'm telling you, you got to figure out who you are. And if you're a human being that has any compassion for other human beings, it's really hard to understand how you can stomach somebody like Donald Trump.
I have a question for everybody. And well, first of all, before I get to that question, let me focus more on a local question to Oakland boss. How do you see the political races shaping up? Because you got, in the context of how hard it is to campaign, when you can't walk, you say a person buy a lawn sign or put your lawn sign out, but no one's going to see your lawn sign, right? But you got District 1, Dan Kalb is the incumbent, Lynette Gibson McElhaney in District 3, and you've got what would seem to be a huge battle in District 7, although the signatures seem to have whittled some people out of the race. And how do you see these races shaping up?
I think you're right. The pandemic has given us a unique campaign environment. I think times are still relevant because people see them. They're driving to the store. They're driving for those who are working or driving home. And I think they give a sense of neighborhood support. But in reality, it's going to be a unique campaign. It's going to be decided by the quality of mail, the quality of walking to the extent that you can walk, certainly by the extent of phone calling, and more importantly, by the absentee ballot. You're going to have a high turnout. And by, I would say, the third week in October, most people, if not 3/4 of them, will have already voted. So I think you're really going to see an election that's going to be very unique in terms of how it's conducted, certainly a very unique campaign as it relates to how votes are gathered, bundled, and delivered to the registrar. And in the final analysis, how you convince the voters that you're the candidate who can best represent their interests and, in some cases, change the dynamic, if not the culture, at City Hall.
Do you think that, or how much do you think that the pandemic will impact the outcome from the perspective of housing? People supposedly have moved or left Oakland, and others have lost their jobs. How do you see the pandemic impacting this Oakland races?
Well, gentrification is real. Over the last 15 years in particular, we've seen a continued influx of new people, many from San Francisco, who have decided that Oakland is a more desirable environment, in some cases, a better economic bargain from the standpoint of housing in San Francisco. Now I think the question is, are they going to be able to develop a sense of community? Are they, in fact, now going to recognize they live in Oakland? Are their futures in Oakland? The elected officials who serve them have to be representative, have to be accountable. And if they can begin to identify who they believe will best serve and who will most be accountable to them, you will have effective elected officials, and we'll have people who will back be responsive to the grassroots community that elects them.
Of all of them, who do you think is in the toughest position to win? I'll tell you who I think is in the toughest race. I think that Lou Dial's in a tough race against Richard Rea, because Richard Rea is a popular Oaklander who made a shift. I mean, having said that, Richard didn't win District 1, but he came out of it stronger, and he's managed to, maintain a profile, although not a high one. But what do you think about it?
I think that I think all the races that are contested are going to be difficult, including the at-large race. People are raising money. They're getting their message out. They're running a structured campaign. And the question is, can they resonate with the voters? We won't know that certainly over the next 60 days. When it gets down to the last 15 days, we'll have a much better idea. But currently, I would.
I have another question regarding Oakland before we shift back to the national, and that's it's from an unusual angle. I remember when I think everybody in this room has been familiar with the Oakland Barbecue Becky situation, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Bill and Eric, you know about Barbecue Becky, the lady that in Lake Merritt came to three brothers, Kinsey Smith, who's a friend of mine, and basically said, "Hey, you're not supposed to be here," and tried to call 911 on him.
I do. I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah, Bill, you know about Barbecue Becky or Jessica Schulte? Bill?
Wasn't Barbecue Becky sort of a forerunner of the modern Karen?
Yes, absolutely. That's quite correct. Yeah, you're aware. Okay, yeah. I asked that for this reason. Okay, when I was interviewing Kinsey, he told me, it's on Zennie62 on YouTube, that he harassed them for 3 hours, not 22 minutes as is in the video, right? 3 hours. And among other things, she said, "You're not supposed to be here because I own the lake. I bought it for $5.7 million." And I told Kinsey right in the middle of our interview, I stopped and I said, "Wait a minute. She told you she bought Lake Merritt for $5.7 million as opposed to billion, and you didn't call 911 on that basis alone?" I'd have had the cops on her like that. Point that I'm making is that we have people coming over from San Francisco and other areas who are also whacked out. And we don't talk about that aspect of change in Oakland, but it has affected us. I remember there was a blog post written on the bold italic by a woman whose name I'm not going to mention, who's an Oaklander, who admitted that in the middle of her postpartum depression, she was racist. You hear what I'm saying? So there is this problem of mental illness, I don't know, and it could be related to drugs and everything else that we're not talking about in Oakland. How do we start that discussion? Or am I wrong, and this is just the way things have changed? Where am I?
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just a factor. There are people who are mentally ill. There are people who are drug addicted. There are people who are uneducated. I mean, we're an amalgamation of different people, and that's why we live in a pluralistic society. The question is, you got to appeal to those who are constructively engaged, those who are educated, those who have a real interest in what's going on in their community. The rest of them, unfortunately, are, if not victims, perpetrators. And you got to figure out how to talk to the people who actually engage in trying to be relevant to their community and constructive in their participation in a democracy. There's all kinds of people in any given city, and they all take all kinds, whether they're gentrifiers or people who've been here for decades. They're just people. And you have to appeal to those people who want to be listened to, are rational, and who really want to be, again, part of the solution, not part of the problem.
And before we shift back to the national, I can't resist. You're involved behind the scenes in District 7 with Bishop Bob Jackson. How do you talk about Bishop Bob Jackson, why you feel he's the best choice for District 7?
Well, first of all, I have two really good friends. I've known Treva since she was a young girl. Treva Reed, Larry Reed's daughter, who's running for District 7. And I have a lot of respect for both of them. I had talked to Bishop Jackson over a year ago about his candidacy, so I was already committed to it. What I like about Bob Jackson is he's been involved in the community for the last 35, 40 years. He's been raised in the community, lived in it all of his life. He's done affordable housing. He's done work with the homeless. He's done feeding programs. He's helped those who are getting out of incarceration with his Men of Valor program. So I love his long-term involvement in the community. And I think that record is something that needs to be perpetuated and certainly needs to be represented at City Hall. Treva, on the other hand, is a relative newcomer, and I think her commitment is real. I think she's obviously qualified. I just think that the person who's been there over that length of time has a better record upon which to run.
Now, I'm going to open this out to Bill and Eric. Are there races in Chicago and in what part of Florida do you live in, or Florida, that we should be aware of and keep our eyes on?
Bill, I'll defer to you on that one.
I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. I don't want to say flat out no, But I mean, there's some races, but how do I? There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Anticipation. I don't want to say we already know who's going to win, but we already know who's going to win. I'll just tell you, in Chicago, once you've won the Democratic primary, you've won. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, a Republican has not won a citywide election since Big Bill Thompson, probably. I mean, you got to go back a way.
That was way back.
It's been a minute. So once you've won the Democratic primary, with very few exceptions, I mean, in the city itself, and once you get out in the suburbs, things change. But in the city itself, with very few exceptions, once you've won the Democratic primary, you can basically start getting your new business cards printed up.
Eric, you got anything to add, or you want to?
The woman that I'm hoping is the one who does get the nod. Her name is Michelle Rayner. She's Florida House District 70.
Right.
And I really hope that she is the individual who is successful. Now, I've just done a very little bit of research and my homework on her. And unfortunately, she's not, because of where I live, I can't vote. I shouldn't say I can't vote for her. I'm just not in her district. But she is probably the person who I'm really pushing for, because I feel she is going to be the one to really give us somewhat of a turnaround in this state. So that's probably the only person I can tell you right now. With regards to, my local and county officials, I'm voting. I just kind of very much like Bill. I have an idea, as I know who is going to be the winner. I'm not sure if it's going to be the people that I have chosen to vote for.
I'm kind of used to that. So back to the national focus. I have a bone to pick with the party, right? And it's not a bad bone, because heck, the party let me cover the convention, so I can't be mad at the party. But nonetheless, I have a concern. And Elihu, you're the elder statesman, and I really love your feedback on this, because I have an issue with this. And I think I told you about this in 2016 when I complained to the party that the Republicans were eating our lunch in social media and digital media. And there were operatives at the party didn't want me at the convention and got their way. I wasn't there, right? But here we are this time. And look, $10 million was spent last week by the Republicans, Trump. Every time I turn around, I was seeing ads for Trump on my blogs, including Oakland News Now. So I ripped out the code for Oakland News Now, because ads are not our primary source of revenue by far anyway. And overall, and then all of a sudden I was getting this email and then watching that program, and it didn't matter if it was MSNBC saying at one point that Trump was tied with Biden, or some other kind of news that was for Trump. I got the impression somebody's money was being spent on the Trump side, and it was affecting media. Tell me when I'm off my rocker, because I feel like, once again, we're trying to stack the deck against us, and we're not fighting back.
Social media is something that a lot of people are behind the times on. It's really most effective with young voters because they obviously look at TikTok and every other social media you can find, Instagram, you name it. And I think that we're catching up. We're a little slow. It was very predominant in 2016. It was certainly used effectively by the Republicans, the Trump organization. But this has been going on for a while. They invested heavily in social media. A lot of that was because of the dark money. If you read the book, you should. If you haven't, you should. Which is the dark money coming from people like the Koch brothers have allowed them to invest in that level of technology in ways that the Democrats didn't understand. They thought they were doing traditional campaigning, where you put money on television or you put money into getting out the vote, it just is not as effective because there are too many people who are being influenced by Facebook and other forms of social media, and not enough by the more directed mail and commercial that the Democrats have traditionally invested in. They're changing, they're evolving, but not very quickly.
Hey, boss, I know you've got a busy agenda, and love for you to stick around, but I want for you to stay patch to take if you need to go.
Well, I'm going to go because I've dominated the conversation. Eric,
no. If you can stick around, I want you to stay. That's exactly what I want. But I just think that I also know you're not the kind of person that's going to say, "Oh, Zennie, you know, this like I just wanted to check in with you," because you are unfailingly polite and you're being great mentor to me over the years.
Look,
I want you to stay. That's what.
First of all, let me say a couple of things, and I'm going to get off the air. One, Zennie, I want to compliment you on your persistence in developing this national platform relative to what's going on with the Democratic Party, and hopefully give you the same opportunity with the Republican Party. I mean, the voices need to be heard. We need to listen. We are in a society where information is fugitive and things change day to day. If you're not staying on top of it, if you're only getting your information from one source, whether it's MSNBC or Fox News, you're not getting the whole picture. You need to try to get as much information as you can. Draw your own conclusions based on logic. And in the words of Maya Angelou, truth is a stubborn fact. Search for the truth. Don't listen to lies. Everybody will lie to you if you're stupid enough to believe it. So make sure you get your own information. Check with Zennie. Zennie is incredible in searching for the truth. Even if it's uncomfortable truth, he will search for it. He will expose it. Even if it's for his friends, he's exposed me more times than I want to count. I'm trying to stay on his good side. So I would suggest that if you want to mess with Zennie, he's going to come back and get you when you least expect it. So Zennie, man, thank you for allowing me part of Zennie62 media as it relates to the Democratic Convention. I want to thank Eric and Bill for indulging me in my overbearing aspect of this part of the show. But I'm going to turn it over to them. They can carry the weight. I thank them for their kindness. And Zennie, I thank you for your time and certainly the positive acknowledgments that you've given me. I appreciate you. I love you, man.
I love you too, man. I got to say this too. Hey, how about this? Because I showed Elihu before we started. The Kremlin is reading Oakland News Now. He even tried to take it down, and it didn't work. And hey, I got pictures, folks. I got pictures. As I say, I got receipts.
Take it from Putin. Follow Zennie62 so you can see what's going on in America.
That's right. Hey, Vlad, come on the show. Come on the show, Vlad.
All right, you guys. Hey, take care. Peace and blessing to all of you. And let's see what happens. The next 77 days are going to be exciting, interesting, and probably going to be the most important 77 days of any of our collective lives.
We're going to have you back. I'm gonna have you back, man. I'm gonna get Vlad on too.
All right. Yeah, let's have a debate with Putin. I think that'll be fun.
I'm gonna raise that, man. I'm going after him. Putin is next. Zennie, I'm serious, folks. I'll tell you how that happened. On your Facebook or Twitter, please tweet this out for others to join in. All you have to do is there's the YouTube version is already up. If you go to Zennie62 on YouTube, it'll say live. You can actually take that and push that out there. Okay, so this is what's happened today. Oakland News Now is getting heavily bombarded. I'm thinking I've got all these bot attacks under control, yada yada yada. And all of a sudden, someone has discovered a vulnerability I hadn't taken into account. Okay, so the blog slows down, but me being me, I'm like, no one defeats me. So I go back. I basically do what every good server manager should do: stop the processes. Okay, stop the processes. Keep that in mind. You have a problem, go in, put your processes in your tables like that. Okay, that's what I did. All right, it's like yanking them. All right, so I do that. And I have to give credit to HostGator because HostGator was the one that pointed me to a vulnerability. I'm not going to say what it was. Closed the vulnerability, but in the middle of discovering the vulnerability, discovered there was an IP address from Russia. And Russia's a huge nation, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And the former Soviet Union is even bigger when you consider, Ukraine and right. So I decided just to take this URL, and I took the URL, and then I put it in the URL locator, actually the IP address, and put the IP address locator. And as it turned out, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I'm still so flabbergasted that this happened in a cool kind of way. But I gotta share this with you. It was such a special moment for me that you know what, I even made a video blog about it, and here it is, right here. I'll play for you right now.
You're wondering what that dot is? That is the location of a hacker that has tried to get into Oakland News Now. That's right. And look at how close this person is to the Kremlin. You can't make this up. This is right from my report generated from within my site. I mean, from Oakland News Now. Okay? This is wild. So if you want any indication that Russia is out to silence liberal voices, ostensibly on behalf of Donald Trump, you're seeing one example. Did you see that? Look at this map. Look at this. Look at this map. Look at that. All right? It's between the Moscow, it's on Traska Utata, and then there's Tryoska Tower. Look at that. And then if we go down to Street View on Google, it looks like this. And it reads, the State Kremlin Palace, Nikolai Federer. That was May of 2018. Okay. So then let's say that we go down here, turn here, and oh, look at that. Ooh. I'll bet you that's where it's coming from.
That's a serious looking building.
So I don't know what to think of this, but hey, it's a signal of where we're at in today's society. And really, just who's paying attention to messages over here. It's not all the United States. It's in Russia and other places as well, like Denmark and Brazil and South Africa. Subscribe to Zennie62 and bookmark.
Yeah, I had to note that, folks, because I'm still tripped out about that. No, but here's the thing, okay? And in reality, I get a ton of traffic from the Russian Federation, but I never bothered to actually take the IP address and locate it. Now I'll do a whole map and see where it's distributed. But they know this blog is out there. What does that say about today?
Welcome to 2020, really. I mean, just to show how far something that was at one time a thought in your mind that has grown to the level that Zennie62 Media is, to now be, which you've already known this, to now be on a international level, to where powerful individuals or someone within their organization are taking notice to your vision. You know what I'm saying? People are noticing not only what you're saying, the content that exists, but they want to make sure that they have covered their base as far as, well, here's what's going on in the Bay Area. Here's what's going on in Chicago. Here's what's going on in Florida. Here's what's going on here. But now they've taken it to the cyber world and said, anything that is either for or against what we are about, We want to know. They are truly, and this is not a negative towards you, but they want to not only know their audience, but they also want to know their enemies.
Sure. But I got, and that's really cool. But I got to tell you, they're trying to denial of service attack. They're trying to take the site down. It didn't work.
And that's just a testament to you, the individual that you are, and the brand that you have created, and all the behind the scenes work that you do to ensure that platforms like this are out there for everybody. And you've taken the necessary steps so that when things like this do happen, you're prepared for it. You're not just another site. You know what I mean? You're not just another media outlet. You're someone bringing true news to the people. So
yeah, I just want to send the message, and then I'm going to go on to your response. But I just want to send that you can take down my site, and I just I want this visual where I have this imagination of someone being very pissed off they can't take the site down. And now, on the other hand, I have no problem posting press releases from evangelicals or anything else. But take my site down? No. You ain't taking my site down for nothing, man. But it never ceases to amaze me how many, I just have to say this, how many people just think to this day and age that because you're black, you don't know anything.
Right.
And it's after Obama. And you know what I'm saying, Bill? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mentioned this once before. We had a economy that was agrarian, right, for almost 100 years, primarily agrarian. Then we went to what I call skills-based economy, where you had a rise of the quote-unquote working middle class. So these were artisans, people who worked in skilled trades, people who were in what had once been thought of as low or no skilled trades that got elevated through the beginning of mechanization and industrialization. So some of these things that that sort of started low became, you can now just make a living wage, they eventually start to save. Now we've moved on into a post-industrial, what I call knowledge or intellectual property-based economy, where your ability to acquire certain things that are intangible, right? You can't put it in a box. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't, describe. It'd be hard to describe to your grandmother, right? These are things that's how that's how you know it's something that's truly an intangible. When you have trouble describing it to your grandmother, well, what does it do? What does it look like? Well, here's how it works. You have to have a whole flow chart to explain it to someone. That's where our economy has now shifted. So that means that those who have not been left behind have had to adapt to that. So when they talk about, well, what happened to Gary, Indiana? What happened to Detroit? What happened to, now Pittsburgh has turned it back around. Pittsburgh now has a huge amount of biomedical research and things like that. It's become almost like, a little mini Silicon Valley in the Pittsburgh and southwestern Pennsylvania area. Through some of the hospitals there, they've gotten some big, giant competitive grants, and Carnegie Mellon and Duquesne and Pitt have also collaborated together to turn that economy around. So now Pittsburgh is actually doing fairly well. But not all of the old, quote-unquote, Rust Belt cities were able to do so. So that applies to people. It only applies to cities or areas, it applies to people. So the people who were able to see this coming or be carried along by this new wave are going to be able to keep adjusting, right? Because if you're able to shed your skin once, you can do it again. The people who weren't able to make this change, who weren't able to, we all have someone we know or someone in our family or someone, who's connected to us, who's one of those people who wasn't able to do it, who is still living in a dead city or close to dead city or a part of the country where when the paper mill went away or the whatever factory went away, nothing replaced it but a bunch of Walmarts where now you go there and you make $8 an hour. So you've actually, and we talked about, or maybe we didn't talk about it, but I've talked with others about how for the first time we've seen a significant chunk. Some say it's over 25% of the current generation are actually going to go in the reverse in terms of, downward mobility from the generation ahead of them, which is sort of a first in American history, where sometimes there have been plateaus and little dips. We obviously
have the hell out. I mean, that scares the. It really does. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had things like the Depression, and there were some panics that went on in the 1800s, 19th century, but nothing that was sustained. It was always a dip. And then you come back out even stronger. But there's going to be a group of young people who don't have certain skills. This will not be a dip. This is not a bump. This is not something they're just going to pop right out of. They're going to be on a steady and probably prolonged decline over the rest of their lives. Most likely, something changes over the lifestyle of their parents, as well as even their grandparents. And this is, like I said, something somewhat new. We've never had a large number of young people who weren't able to live at the same lifestyle level of their parents or grandparents. That's not a thing that we usually associate with this country. We always talk about how powerful and how rich land of opportunity and all these other things. So, like, people still don't believe there's a societal and digital divide that are married to each other. People say digital divide, and that only tells you half the story. Yep. Because it's not just that somebody doesn't have a tablet. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of it, but that's not the whole deal. Or they don't have high speed. It's also, there's a whole set of skills and expectations that are attached to it. If you've come up with people around you who say, you're going to need this to live in the new world. And here's how you use this. Here's how you leverage it. It's not just you have access to it, because everyone has a smartphone, at least theoretically has access to the internet. But not everyone has a mindset built on using it in such a way that they actually benefit, right? Some people literally just watching TikTok or making TikTok videos, which I'm not saying, I guess there's people making money somehow with that, but that's like the NFL. How many kids who can dribble a basketball make the NBA? How many kids who can throw a football, make the NFL? I'm assuming it's the same way with TikTok or whatever else you want to name. I'm sure there's some who have managed to monetize it, but that's what? 3%, less than 3%. I don't know any numbers. I'm just throwing things out there, but I'm guessing it's a small percentage.
Eric, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there are a lot of different avenues right now for younger generations to make money, and to Bill's point, that does kind of give them a leg up in some areas, but those basic fundamental skill trades, those things that I guess we were taught and things that we grew up on, yeah, those are slowly on the decline. And those simple things, like, I'll never forget, growing up, one of my favorite things to do was to play with my father's tool set. And I really had no rhyme or reason why. Maybe it was the noise. Maybe I just liked it. I wanted to be around him. I don't know what the thing was about it. But I learned that by watching him. I learned what a Phillips versus a flathead was. I learned a 3/8 versus a 5/16. You know what I mean? It's those little things that, we have grown to such a level to where we're, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody and say, oh, it's going to be the rise of the machines or anything like that. But we have become so complacent on relying artificial intelligence, if you will, to kind of take over our normal day to day. And there's only a small collective that actually know how to work, to fix, to repair when those things go down.
Yeah.
I remember at 17, 18 years old, changing my own oil. Do I do it now? No. But if I had to, I could, jack up the Jeep, get under there, and I know where to look for to drain my oil.
You know where the oil pan is, yeah.
Right. You, I think if you ask a 20 or 21-year-old who's not a gearhead, they're going to be like, no, I just take it down the street and Advanced Auto Part does it for me, or Jiffy Lube does it for me. You know what I mean? We've become so much of we'll just have someone else take care of it, that at some point that person isn't going to be there to do it.
Right. That's what the problem is we have in Oakland with the Oakland oversized terminal. I may have mentioned before, people call it a coal tunnel, some do. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, the real problem is I come from a generation where we fix things. So you say to me, oh, this thing's going to pollute. So my retort is, well, wait a minute. Let's create the technology so it doesn't. But this generation doesn't want to think that way. They want to think, oh, just get rid of it. I don't want it. It's like they're like there's no, right? As opposed to, I think I can fairly say our generation, which is Star Trek generation. In fact, it's Star Trek, the original series, I might add.
Right.
Okay. I gotta make that clear, okay? Because I don't know if you watch Discovery, but it's kind of like okay, but open the card. But the way they've taken the Federation and just in general the whole universe, to me, is not Star Trek. All right, and I'm not the only one saying this. A lot of hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool Trekkers who are really pissed off with what's being produced. And the whole point of Star Trek was not to reflect today's society. It's to say we go beyond today's society and be better, right?
Right.
Now, having said that, where we came from was right smack in the middle of every aspect of wanting to improve society. Civil rights, make it better. Transportation, make it better. Cities, make it more accessible. Housing, make it more affordable, right?
Yep.
Now it's every person for himself, and we got three dudes: Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, and Bill Clinton, whose collective wealth is equal to 50% that of the United States. All right? And that's the epitome of the idea factory one amok, where somebody says, I'll create the next mousetrap, better one. They create it. And then, okay, I'll throw in Mark Zuckerberg because he's coming up, he's up there and rising. But all of a sudden, everyone else assumes, oh, I can't do that. I mean, let's take Twitter as an example of what I'm talking about. Here's the dirty little secret about the Twitter platform. I mean, in its basic form. You can make a Twitter platform. All it is PHP code designing a holdover code that replicates and then allows when someone else makes another entry, replicates that, and it becomes a string of code tied together, essentially, okay? I made one based on the Identica platform, which is a kind of programming language. There are people who make these all the time. And yet, the general population has this idea that you can only do Twitter. And it's been advanced by I told Brian Rolapp of the NFL 5 years ago, I said, hey, how come the league doesn't make its own Twitter account, right? That's literally what I got with a response. Well, just do it. And so what I fear is that we have, there's a video. I'll let you in a second, Vinny. We have a society that I'll just let Vinny in. Welcome, Vinny. How you doing? We have a society.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Vinny, how are you?
We have a society now where I fear that people will grow up not knowing that you can make your own platform. All you got to do is bring people to it. Like when I made telling.me, and you would say, why did I call it telling.me? It's like, ooh, I'm telling, me telling. So it's like a play on words. Like, and I'm telling is right. It's like right. And I designed it. I designed it from scratch. And I took it to Michael Downing, who, if you remember when Shaquille O'Neal announced his retirement, the platform he did it on, that's my friend Michael Downing's platform, Tau. He sponsored Zennie62 Media at the DNC 2012. His company brother did, not him. But I took it to Michael, and we had a meeting in his office about what he thought. And he said, well, how are you going to gain traction? I said, well, I thought of it this way. If you give me the money to build it, I'll buy the traction, right? I'll buy the people, literally. But he wanted to see it work organically. And I see where he's coming from as a VC, all right? I get that. My point, though, is the main dynamic was that it just needed people. It's not that it didn't work. It
Right.
worked. Okay? Just add people. So, but we have the media that says, like, and this is why the media is failing. And this is why journalists are getting hacked left and right. Because rather than make their own platforms, they get on somebody else's platform like they own it, and they don't. And I've seen in Eric, I saw this at the NFL Combine. More people who are getting paid top dollar by big news organizations spending the majority of their time writing whole paragraphs after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph as tweets on Twitter. Now that's giving free money in terms of content to Jack Dorsey.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? And I'm thinking, are these people stupid? And yet they think they're doing like, you see what I wrote? Yeah, I saw what you wrote, you idiot. You didn't write it on the platform.
So to piggyback off that, Zennie, there was a guy today on the media call for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And since he got to ask questions to one of the players, that's exactly what he did. He had probably 7, 8 tweets back to back to back to back of the conversation that he had with one of the Buck players. And I was like, you have a website.
You know what
Why would you not?
I'll take these tweets. I'll put them on Oakland News Now. I'll get that for myself.
I was like, why would you not put that information on your website first? Why does it have to be on Twitter when you're only allowed 280 characters? And it's like, I mean, exactly to what you said. It was, I can probably go back and look at it, and I'm telling you right now, there's at least 6, if not 7 different tweets. And I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah. You know, and Vinny, what we're talking about is how society changed for us. You're at the end of this other end of the spectrum because you're 21 now. By the way, have you watched Wall Street yet, Vinny?
I've not been able to. As what I did today was what happened today is that I actually moved a lot of my stuff to my dorm. Now you might be saying, well, you're not in your dorm right now. So what are you doing here? Well, I just moved stuff. That's why I didn't come sooner, because I was busy doing that. But I'm here either way, so that's fine. Joseph didn't come until later on, but that's okay. Don't worry.
Oh, no, that wasn't what I was thinking. What I was thinking was, are you safe?
Am I safe?
Yeah, because you said you were moving into your dorm, and it's the pandemic.
Yes, I had my mask with me. The way that we did it was almost like we followed the guidelines. At first, my mom dropped me off at the gym, and the way that we went is that we went in a certain way, and then we went into the entrance. And at the entrance, there was a security officer there, and he said to take your phone out right here and to scan the QR code. And once you get the QR code, you go to a questionnaire. Once you get the questionnaire, you got to make sure you check if you had any symptoms lately, if you tested negative or positive in the last 14 days, if you're quarantined, especially if you're out of state. So then after I was done with that, I went over to the keepers, and I did the test, got the keys, and I went to my dorm.
There you go.
So,
go ahead.
They're doing them space by space. Like some are going to be some when the day that I did, some the next day, and afterwards, like that.
Just stay safe. What we're talking about is, for example,
thanks.
What are you studying this year? This is, and what did you study in high school? Did you have shop or anything in high school?
Did I say that one more time?
Did you have anything like what shop for me? And I believe for Bill and for Eric was you go in and you take a class and you learn how to make wood. Carve something out of wood, or you take auto, where you know how to fix cars, that sort of thing.
No, in high school, because I went to a private school, they didn't have any of that stuff. However, I did make up for it as a Boy Scout. I've done many merit badges. That's how I got the rank of Eagle, which is the highest rank you can get. It's on my Twitter page. In fact, I even say it in my bio that I'm an Eagle. And also, thanks. And as for one of my merit badges, I got a wood carving one. I've also done rifle shooting, just all the lists of just different accomplishments, regardless of what it is. Everything.
So basically, you have a view. I mean, what do you see yourself employer-wise doing? And and what do you see yourself, and what do your peers see themselves doing?
What do I see myself doing?
Yeah, what do you want to do for a job when you get out of college? What's your dream? And then what are your peers' dreams?
Well, big reason as to why I'm in Hofstra, specifically in the radio station WRHU, is because I want to be a sports journalist. Specifically, as Bill should know, I'm the Hall of Fame guy. I want to be a voter, which is something that one of my professors, who is a sports journalism professor, in his 50 years in the industry, he has never heard a single individual say they want to be a voter, because a lot of people just think that just comes with the job. They don't actually say, oh, I want to vote for baseball or for football or whatever. Right. And I was a little bit shocked by that. Like, okay, then if no one's ever done it, I guess I'm the first one, and I take that with a lot of pride.
Oh, what about your peers?
What my peers? It really depends on the person. There's some PR majors. There's some, journalism majors. There's some that just do it for fun. I don't know. It's really varied. Some want to be in tech. Some want to be behind the scenes. It's really varied depending on the person, because a lot of people feel like, tech, you're probably going to see those jobs open more, because that's what a lot of us were taught. Like, or a lot of the jobs are going to come through tech. So make sure you go with that, which it's good to be well-rounded. Though at the same time, I don't want to just do tech, because I feel like, once you do, even though I am someone that is good with tech decently, at the same time, we don't go to the station to want to just do tech. We go there to broadcast ourselves. We go there
Metal
to
shop, print shop,
for a
auto
passion.
shop.
Yeah, not like auto shop, like, behind the scenes with the cameras and whatnot. I know how to do that, but that's generally not the passion that most people go there for. It's generally go there to be on the radio or to do games for, Hofstra. And we're actually the only college station in the nation that has a professional team from the 4 major sports. We actually cover the New York Islanders, and I'm someone that could proudly say I've operated the board for the team on ESPN, as well as even produced some of the games. So,
did you apply for any of the scholarships? Did you apply for any scholarships?
Did I apply for any scholarships? Yes, I do have a scholarship. I do try to keep up my grades the best I can. I tried to get an internship this semester, because they said that, oh, you should not. We don't recommend you do we don't suggest you do an internship digitally, because you won't get the full experience. And I listened to that offer, and then the pandemic hit, and now I don't have an internship. Thanks a lot. But I think I'll get one. Don't worry.
Okay, so this underscores my point, though. You can see how different, the way Vinny grew up from the way we did, and I think for me, to round out this conversation, I go back to my thesis I wrote at Berkeley City Planning. It was called "The Theory of Decline: The American Institution in the World Economy," and what I was struck by, which led me to write the thesis, was how the United States history was, for much of it, invested in creating market economies around the world, not realizing that it was creating its own competitors. And the most notable examples are Japan, and now, of course, to a large extent, and then, of course, China, in terms from import replacing, and then how rather than adopt the Japanese way of the kairitsu, where the government would finance the kairitsu, and the kairitsu consisted of these companies that interlocking ownership, right? Well, to do that, we insisted, oh, that won't work. Then some people started calling it socialist and all that. And now we're essentially getting hammered by the same market economies that we helped create.
How ironic is that?
And that's why I call it a theory of decline. And now we're at this point where we're there. And I'd hoped I wouldn't see it, because my solution then still applies today. It was subsidization of the industrial structure. And we when you do that, when somebody screams loud enough politically, we don't do it as a matter of course. So
actions speak louder than words.
Right. If we did it as a matter of course, we wouldn't have underemployed people. We would not have a lot of problems we have right now. But I don't want to go off on but the whole point is, that's where I see us, and that's why I think this series of elections is the most important we could ever have, because I want you guys' view on what I'm about to say. I think Donald Trump is on purpose trying to wreck the Republican Party. I don't think he even wants to be a Republican. I think he wants to wreck the Republican Party for Democrats in the future. I think it's about him in power. He doesn't care about the party. What do you think?
A lot of times, don't forget, he was a former Democrat. He was very close to the Clintons.
Yeah. Harvey Weinstein, just saying.
Yeah, that's why I've always been. And also, don't forget, he also ran in 2000 as a member of the Reform Party, because
that's right.
A lot of people don't remember that because, of course, he didn't win. And I know that a lot of people why. I know that everyone says the Simpsons predict everything. Like when they predicted that, we get smart watches. 20th Century Fox will get bought by Disney, all that stuff. But a very famous one is back from 2000, where it looks into the future as Lisa as the president. And then what she says is that we inherit a big budget crunch from President Trump, and many people said they predicted Trump's presidency, when in reality it's just because they were just joking how Trump ran as a member of the Reform Party in 2000.
Hey, Bill and Eric, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Bill, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, Zennie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Me or Bill?
I heard Bill say something, but then it sounded like he cut out. I was trying to free up some space so that the RAM, I think the RAM gets kind of tied up at that point, so I've freed it up. Bill, try again. Bill?
Can't hear him.
Can't hear him. Bill? That's it. Eric, what do you think? Until Bill, I think Bill has a delay. Eric, go ahead.
Okay. So, I mean, in everything that Vinny was saying, it just goes to show where generations are at with regard to thought process. And I'm thankful that there are still young men like Vinny out there who don't want to just hone themselves into one particular aspect or one particular craft. Granted, they have their thought of where they want to go in life and what they want to do.
Thanks.
But they still want to educate themselves to have vast knowledge of, I won't say vast knowledge, to have knowledge of different things and not just be dialed in. Listen, it's great.
Definitely.
It's great to have that focus on what you want to change in the world and what you want to focus on and where you want whatever your journey is, whatever your road is. And I can tell you, as a guy who's jumped around from this to that to the third to the fourth, it took me many failures to get to, where I'm at right now. And I'm still learning. But so many times, we look at things and our focus is squarely and solely on that one particular thing. Like if I would have, and I'll just put it out there, if I would have stuck with what I wanted to be when I was 6 years old, I'd be a lawyer. Because if that was my focus at 6, because that's what I wanted to do. Crazy, I know.
No, that's smart, man. That's smart. Were you arguing cases with your imaginary self?
Oh yeah. I had the whole courtroom and everything set up.
Wait, did you win the case?
Not all. I had to.
And he never brings it up.
But again, it's one of those. I started along that journey, but then something else piqued my interest, and then from there I went to this, and then from there I went to that, and then it's only when I found my love of sports and talking about sports and debating with people. So I guess some of that lawyer in me is still there. I just wanted. That's where I found it went from being a love to being more of a passion. And I know that sounds crazy, like because they're kind of one and the same, but they're honestly not. Because if you love something, and it's going to cause you to maybe go one direction versus another based on your love of something. But when you're passionate about something, it's like you remove all obstacles because that's where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again my perspective, how I look at things. But and I think that ties in a lot to this election, because we talk about, as Mr. Harris, who was on earlier, he talked about, well, do you want the poison that's going to kill you, or do you want the poison that you can live with but still maintain? And a lot of people, I think, do look at this election that way. It is I guess, if you will, the lesser of two evils. Now, I don't see it like that, because being who I am, living where I live, and seeing what I see, I'm just like, listen, I'm not saying anything's better. But at this point, listen, I'll put Zennie and Bill on the ticket if it means, 45 is gone. I mean, that's what I do. If I knew y'all had a fighting chance, believe me, I would do it. I'm just telling you, just make me a part of your cabinet and we'd be all right. But I'm just saying.
I might be too young though.
Yeah, Vinny, you have to wait about 14 more years before you can join. But I mean,
you beat Donald Trump right now.
But it's just it's how the world, and more importantly, how our country is being viewed with regards to who is currently in office versus who the opposing candidates are. And I'll be honest, for me, there's no question in my mind. But there are people who have their doubts. And we always go back and we look at history. And we want to look at the person's record. We want to see what they did and how good of a humanitarian they were and what policies they instituted and how they effectively brought about change within their community, within their state, when they were in charge, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like to take things, maybe peel back the layers and go just a little bit deeper than that. I always have to ask myself, what's in this person's heart? What's in this person's mental stability before I'm going to pass judgment on them? And I think so many people are so quick to do that. Now, in certain cases, when you just see it continually happening over and over and over and over again, well, okay, that's a different story. That's just, this person is just showing you their hand. You can choose to accept it, or you can choose not to. Yeah. And you can figure out a way to no longer have to deal with this side of it. But we've got to get away from this whole, it's called so many times, the court of public opinion, because the popular vote ain't getting it done. At the end of the day, it's still, and gentlemen, please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going way back here, it's still the electoral vote that decides who gets in and who doesn't.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah. So if that's our focus, then that's where we need to be. Like tomorrow morning, I'm voting tomorrow, because for Florida, tomorrow's our day.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Florida, I want to do this. I want to shift gears a little bit, because what I want to do is sign off a little bit, take a break, and come back at 9. And what I like to do is kind of I was going to go in the kitchen and do a kind of a watch party where we, watch the show and then critique. And anybody, you don't have to if you don't want to chime in, but I thought it'd be fun. But I want to shift gears, and I want to ask, because Eric, you talked about the Buccaneers.
Okay.
All right. And you on the media call?
I was today. Yes.
I thought I read something where Tom Brady supposedly he's not throwing to certain people.
It's not the best sign.
Say that again. He's not what?
That a tweet was put out, and I'll take it for what it's worth, that
sure.
Brady said that the younger guys were still coming along, but I think the person that wrote the tweet didn't follow up with the interpretation that it meant that Brady wasn't throwing to them like others. And my question is, first of all, how is it different being a beat reporter the way they're handling it? Because you don't really get access, right? And you just get to watch them on a TV, right?
Well, no, actually, I'm on the Zoom calls.
Zoom calls. But on top of that, how much they let you see at camp? See how he's progressing.
Yeah, I don't. What I see as far as what's happening at camp is basically what everybody else sees on ESPN and NFL Network. I've applied now. I've applied to go to training camp at least one day. And, anybody in the Camp Bay organization who's listening, let me get one day. That's all I need. I'm not trying to get the whole week. I asked for the whole week, but I'll take one day. But I digress. Everybody who gets on these calls is asked about him. They've asked about his demeanor, how he is to be around, what is he like, and the response has been consistent from Bruce Arians all the way down. He is a very approachable guy. He is throwing the ball at a level that we know him to be. He is learning the system, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you're supposed to be the guy because that's the route, guess what? The ball's coming to you. That's it. That's really it. And defenses find a way to contain him if you can, because JPP even said that today on the call. He was like, for being 43, he still throws that ball with a very high velocity and with the quickness. So whoever put that tweet out, I can tell you firsthand, that is not what is being said by the players or the coaches.
I figured as much. What do you take away? Because Jenna, who writes for ESPN.
Jenna Lane, yes.
Yeah, it's my friend and buddy. Hey, by the way, I know this is public, but wait, let's get her on this show because we both know, right? It would be great to have her on.
Heard of her.
I would love to talk. I want to hear what the team feels like to cover post Jameis versus Jameis. Because I'm, as you know, a freaking huge Jameis Winston fan, and I'll never step away from that unless he does something.
I'd love to see how Drew Brees coaches him and Sean Payton. I think that's even though that is, I am disappointed that it is. I am disappointed that it was a lot less money, despite the fact that, don't forget, he threw for 5,000 yards last year. I know that's
hold that thought, because what I want to get from Eric is I want to know what it's like in Bucks camp without him and with Brady, and I was wanting Eric to chime in on that.
I mean, you can definitely tell the energy is different. The energy is definitely different. To Vinny's point, and that, again, public record, the man threw for over 5,000 yards. He had 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. I mean, we can sit here and talk numbers and stats all day long, but there's something about the presence of him that in the beginning there was this very high mystique, if you will, because it's like, oh my God, we won the lottery because we got the GOAT. But when you get down to the real substance of it, Tom Brady's a player. He's a very dedicated player. He wants to win. 2 decades of being under the same system with the same coach, the same organization, and having great success.
That point.
Now you bring 2 of those pieces because, Gronkowski came out of retirement and is now a part of that tight end core that is full. I mean, it's stacked, let me tell you. But it's playing with him. And again, everybody on the calls, and you can tell, I mean, listen, as a reporter, you can tell when people are just speaking just to speak, or you can tell when there's some, there's some genuine realness to it. I can honestly say that everybody who's been on the call, when they've been asked about him, it's been a very real conversation. It's not scripted. The organization itself, now it has Bruce Arian, Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, and continually down the list. Because of the significance of his presence, it has elevated the energy in the room because people understand that this man comes from a level of we're winning. There is no second best in his book. So when you look at what it was last year, when you had Jameis at, he got the extension. And it was more of we want to elevate him, but we just don't know what else in the tank there could be for him. And so
I'm dying to ask you this, having said that. Okay, I view it as racist that they changed the offense for Brady, but they didn't change it for Jameis.
Well, okay.
Okay, and
I can see where you're going with that, and here is what I will say. Bruce Arian only worked with him 1 year. He's had how many head coaches? How many quarterback coaches? Offensive coordinators?
3.
So he never had consistency. So
Mariota didn't either.
I'm sorry?
Mariota didn't either. And now that he's going to the Raiders, he has to have a new playbook, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new everything.
Here's what I'm getting at. I want to talk about Mariota. I want to stick on this. Okay?
Right. Okay.
That's what I'm getting at. Okay. Okay. I don't know where Mariota's coming in on this, but Marcus got nothing to do with this. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer said himself that Jameis Winston needed one more year in Arian's system. So that, because remember, Bill, you remember this, 2013. All of you remember this, 2013. Here comes Palmer throwing, 22 interceptions? 22?
Yeah.
Very next year he cuts it to 12.
Right.
All right. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, all right, fine. Jameis gets another year in the offense. Maybe they should improve his time, which means ostensibly you're going to keep the offense mostly the same because you got your guys learning concepts that ostensibly you believe in. But oh no, here comes Tom Brady. We're going to change our whole system. Put in these short passes. I think change the whole system. The nomenclature is the same. All right, but the concepts and the way of thinking, we're going to adjust to Brady. Why? Because he has 6 rings. All right? I mean, and then, so basically it means to me that Bruce Arians didn't believe in what he was doing to begin with. Oh, and where's Byron Leftwich in all this?
I haven't been on any calls with Byron, so I cannot speak to that. I can only speak to the calls I've been on with Arian and several of the other players. One of those players being Tom Brady himself.
What was it like to speak to? Did you speak to Bruce Arians themselves, or you just listening in my calls?
I will say this: there are roughly between 35 to 40 people on these Zoom calls, and when you're only getting 14, 15 questions, and I'm still low man on the totem pole, my hand is raised every time I'm in the room and I'm present, so I'm at the mercy of the organization. A lot of times, pretty much all the times, I'm just there. I'm just thankful to be a part of the group. I get my notes from it, and I go on with it. But my hand is always raised, and I'm always ready when my name is called, should it ever be called. Getting to your point, Zennie, I hear exactly what you're saying. And there are people who are looking at it from your angle, directly from your lens, saying, all of a sudden, when Brady was available and we were able to get him, now the world seemed to change. There was a new life, a new energy, a new mystique, if you will, that had entered Raymond James Stadium and entered One Buck Place. That comes with who he is. And whether we like it or not, that's just the fact of life. That's just who he is. We don't have to agree with the decisions made by the organization. But I will tell you that Jason Light, the general manager, saved his job by doing whatever he had to do to acquire Tom Brady.
But see, I guess here's what my problem is with the whole thing, okay? My problem is I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead, because I've talked a lot. Go ahead. Bill, were you saying something? I think Bill's got
Bill, you're frozen again.
Hey, Vinny turns his head the right way, because if you think about it, to actually turn your head the way you're supposed to turn it, you'd be turning it the wrong way.
Right.
It's kind of Bill.
Yeah, because when I'm looking at Bill from this angle at the monitor, I'm looking over here, but I'm looking at Bill this way. Bill, does anyone have like a pickaxe or something to freeze them out?
Like me, if I do this and I'm like, "What's up, Zenny? How you doing?"
Yeah. Hey, Eric, how you doing, man? Yeah. But see, the thing about it is, I'm actually pointing to the left, right? You're actually to the left. But it feels
it does.
But you know what, though? I feel like there's something with his connection, because I started to feel like Weekend at Bernie's. It was just like, man, it's like, Bill, wake up, But
he's
no,
he's like the glasses. Hey, Bernie's there. Bernie's alive. He's sitting there. He's sitting down.
But here's the thing, and it's 8:22. But all right, I have. What I was going to say is, why should I have any confidence in the Bucks if they don't have any confidence in themselves? Where they don't. It's not like Bill Walsh would never allow that. All right. For one thing, Bill Walsh would not make that kind of move. Bill Walsh has his system. He's not so lacking in confidence in what he's doing that he has to shift and change horses. That's what they're doing. They're changing horses in the middle of the stream.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Well, I hold on. I agree with you on that, Zenny. But here's my thing about that. Bruce Arian, and we all know this, he plays to the strengths of his athletes and his players.
Definitely.
So what I feel that he's doing right now is he's not changing up his whole entire system for Brady. What he did was he has basically 2 decades of tape to watch and said, okay, if I can pull the best of you and throw in some of what I do, but allow you to still be you, well, right there's your happy medium. And right there is that he works with the people to get them. Now, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I feel like if he would have given Jameis another year and worked with him, yes, those 30 interceptions, let's say they go down to 19, maybe even 17. But again, this was 5 years of Jameis. Okay? We had watched him 3 wins, 6 wins, 9 wins. And then all of a sudden, the decline happens. So it's like in year 3, he was supposed to elevate past them 9 wins. We were talking postseason for the Bucks. And it didn't happen.
Right.
And I will put, hold on, let me give you this last point. I will put a little bit of blame and accountability on Jameis himself, because he knew that he needed to get better eye surgery or get LASIK in order to be able to see. And he didn't do that until after he got kicked out.
So funny how he had to get LASIK for it. Like, people just thought, oh, he just likes to throw interceptions, but no, there's literally something wrong with him, because people always make jokes about that. But
right.
We know that's.
But my point is, if you know there's a problem,
fix it.
Take care of it. You're the number 1 draft pick, and you had a responsibility. And I want to know who in his camp. They all to blame, because if I'm in his camp and I know this is a problem, and you're making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, I'm like, dude, go get the surgery in the offseason and watch your production change. I don't only blame him, I blame his agent, I blame anybody in his camp and the organization itself for not working with him. Now, for those reasons, Zenny, I will look at you honestly and I will say this to you. You're probably right. Somebody decided to remove him and just thought that because they could get Brady, he was the better fit. And yes, it's because he's a black quarterback. But there's a very...
That was Brian Glazer, and Brian's a friend of mine, but I'm just calling him.
Okay. All right.
Look, I bet Brian Glazer way back when I was trying to pitch Super Bowl to come to Oakland. So I know him from a different angle. All right. But my point is, hey Joseph, how you doing?
Hey, Laura.
And
hey Joe.
My point is that we're from politics to football, which has and considering the number of NFL owners that are friends of our current president.
Don't forget Woody Johnson.
Yes.
Don't forget. I should mention this. Sorry, Woody Johnson. Don't forget is the ambassador to the UK. That's how close Woody is with the president. And of course, don't forget Woody's also been accused by several people of misconduct.
Good point. Yeah, but I just have a problem with what they did. The reason why you got Jameis that way was, first of all, I don't blame anybody over his coach. I don't blame, because look, the one constant you said, well, he's been through how many? Look, Jameis Winston has had one constant through his entire career until this year. That man's initials are DK. All right. Dirk Carter was his offensive coordinator when he came to the Bucs. He was his head coach, and he was still technically his offensive coordinator because Todd Monken was sort of just a placeholder for Dirk Carter's ideas. How do I know that? Because I've given Dirk Carter ideas himself. We go over an idea because I told him that they were running the en vogue Chip Kelly created crossbuck fake look-in pass that became so popular. You all know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
All right. But they were running it the wrong way. You run it by throwing to your slot guy. You don't run it throwing to your outside split in unless you want to get him killed by the free safety, which happens, okay? So, my point is, you had Dirk Carter, and I was right there, and this is on Zennie62 on YouTube, at the freaking NFL owners meeting. We had Jason Cole on the other side of the table, who didn't want the Bucs to draft Jameis, okay? And he wanted Mario and all this jazz. And Ira was sitting over there.
I recall, yeah.
And we were all talking. They were grilling. They were grilling Lovie Smith about Jameis.
Right.
Remember that? And I'm thinking, you know what? Right. And basically Lovie said he's the guy. They made up their mind, But the deck was stacked against him so much that, because of what happened with he and Eric Kinsman. But even then, I could argue that was set up. I think they had a guy who was so good, and he's black, and it's the South, it's Florida. It's like, oh my God, we just can't handle this. We have to trip him up in some kind of way. Let's give him the black man's kryptonite, okay?
That pissed me off when he was fired. It really set me off. And you only gave Lovie Smith one job, one chance, right. One time, 1 year as the head coach for Winston, and you cut him like that. Meanwhile, Dirk Carter, in a year that the Bucs were expected to make the next step and potentially win the division, he still keeps his job with a worse record. And following you still keep him on the payroll. It's just like that right there is a reason as to why many people view it this way. Whether it's true or not, they're certainly not helping their cause.
Nope. Hey, let's do this. It's 8:32. It starts at 9. Let's break this because we went. And I think Eric, you falling asleep?
No, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm keeping my updates here. I'm checking for anything.
Oh man. And we'll how about we reconvene in about 5 minutes to 9?
I'm a Jameis fan too, Zennie, but Jameis has thrown bad interceptions back to high school. Let's not put it all on Dirk Carter. He had games where he just get stubborn, however you want to put it, and would just decide to, do the Brett Favre thing. I can get it there. He did it in big games, even at Florida State. He would sometimes just get in his head, I can make this throw. And sometimes you can make that throw, but sometimes you can't. That's also a part of his problem.
But I've heard people say that. I heard Mayock say that when, during the time when Mayock was making comments about people that are essentially racist, okay? And
I'm not denying that there's a racial component. You know me. But I'm saying it's not all Dirk Cutter. Like, Jameis is also
this is what I'm getting at. All right, I get it. All right, but this is what I'm getting at, okay? Why put him in an offense that doesn't ask him to throw perfect timing pass where you only have a short pass, okay? Now, they do have some plays like that, but on their longer timing passes, for example, the ones that were the pick sixes that were brought back last year, you had 3 occasions alone where the receiver was turning out when he was supposed to turn in. It takes a year to get that down, and you mean to tell me you're going to blame him? And even Bruce himself said the receiver turned the wrong way.
Oh, well, the receiver, when asked, the receiver themselves said it. I mean, I don't think that's in dispute.
But dude, why you be so freaking stupid to design a system like that to begin with? That's what I'm getting at. You guys let the coaches get away with stupidity. I don't.
I wouldn't either. But I would look at both sides personally. But I'm not trying to just both sides just for the sake of both sidings. But
both sides. You know, Jameis is a people. He a number of people told me this. Jameis is a young man who wants to make everybody happy. He's at that age. He's in his 20s. I've been there. You've been there. Vinny, you were there. Okay. And you want to make people happy. And so you're not going to tell me wrong because you feel like you got a lot to learn. Okay. But what they should have done was sat him down and designed the offense with him and not put him in situations that made him look bad because he wasn't grown up at that point to say, you know what, I can't do this. Because he knew that if he said that, he would have been out the door. So they set the dude up. I'm sorry they did it. I'm sick and tired of people apologizing for an overarching system that made it tough for him. Call out the system.
Right. But that happens to a lot of quarterbacks. And let's be honest about that, too. Like, a lot of young quarterbacks who put in systems that are built for what veteran quarterbacks do well instead of recognizing, hey, this guy is 21 years old. I mean, Jameis came out as a redshirt sophomore, which I kind of thought was a mistake, but I understand, his stock was as high as I guess was going to go. But he hadn't played that much football at a high level. He went to a decent high school program. I mean, no offense to the people of Foley, Alabama, but he wasn't like he was at IMG. It wasn't like he was at Mater Day or whatever. One of those Mater Day, one of those programs where it's just a factory. He's at a solid program, and he's killing it for the most part. But even then, there were moments when Jameis would just get in his head, "I'm going to do this," and he would never give the defense credit. Sometimes the defense beats you, and that's something that Jameis never. Ever. I'm not going to put it all on someone else. There's times when Jameis can't accept the play is dead. And I'm just going to throw this in his head.
Yeah, but Bill, they put him in some of the stupidest plays I've ever seen in my entire life, okay?
Not disputing that. That part's not in dispute.
You don't dispute that. Why would you blame him for throwing something that he was told to throw?
I'm saying that there are quarterbacks. Name a quarterback. Every quarterback's been in a situation where the play design was bad. Like, you can't find a quarterback who hasn't been in that situation.
I can name 3 on one team.
Right, exactly.
I can name Nick Foles, Mike Vick, and Mark Sanchez when they all played for Philadelphia under Chip Kelly.
Right. Sometimes the play is DOA, and you just have to get out of it. Run for 3 yards and slide. Throw it to someone in the stands. Whatever. But the play is dead.
I don't accept that, okay? Because you're talking about a play structure where the play gives you enough time to have to do that. But if I'm asking you to take one step and throw, okay? Sure. The blocking structure is there. You don't have the chance to do that. And what I'm trying to explain to you is they didn't give him that kind of structure, okay? The play was unintelligent. So you are wrong to blame him for an unintelligent system that he is a kid and does not have the power to change. And you and I both know it.
Zennie, I won't disagree with you. I think accountability is on the coaching staff. They did not set him up for success.
Nope.
But what I will also say to you along those lines is being in those stands, watching those games, there were plenty of opportunities for him at the line of scrimmage to change the play.
Oh, show me the audible calls they had installed for him. Show me.
Okay.
That coaching staff was not smart, man. I mean, as I'm consistently reminding, you're talking about people who are glorified PE folks, okay? I get it, all right? All right. See again, this is people making up a structure to explain for something that's not there. They didn't even say he missed an audible call, all right? What was the audible? I've seen people write, oh, he didn't miss the check down. Well, I look at the play and I'm running it back. Where's the check down? That's them coming up with this stuff. It's criminal, man.
All right.
I'm just saying, somebody tell me, it's criminal. It's kind of like, why do people apologize for the overarching system rather than just tell the truth and say, you know what? You said it. Yeah, not only did they not give them a structure, they didn't know what they were doing. Okay? To do it.
Well, I think all your points are valid. I think the one thing is that, which is obvious, is that they didn't play to his strengths. The offensive schemes that they were set up didn't play to his to his strengths, and I think that's one of the biggest problems that kind of leads to everybody's comments in terms of Zennie not being smart enough. And of course, when that happens, eventually that quarterback's going to fail, and it showed.
Right. I mean, Jason Campbell is almost the same sort of story, but a little less dramatic because he wasn't quite the risk taker that Jameis is. But my point is that there's been lots of young quarterbacks dropped into bad situations with bad systems, right?
A lot of them happen to be black. What a shock.
A lot of them. I mean, Doug Williams had it worse than anybody we've talked about so far.
Oh, man.
In every way you can imagine. I mean, Ray Perkins was a nightmare of a coach. Culverhouse was a nightmare of an owner. Tampa at the moment was a nightmare of a system. And he had when they had McKay there, at least he sort of took all the fire. You know what I mean? Like he drew all the attention to himself. So at least McKay sort of acted as a buffer for everybody. But once he was gone, it was a free-for-all. I'm just saying, there are things, even in the worst situations, that sometimes some young quarterbacks manage to figure out, even with everything falling apart around them. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to bail out the bad decisions by the coaching staff. I'm not trying to bail out systems that are essentially built to make you fail, which happens all the time, unfortunately. We act like NFL coaches are all geniuses, and some of them are, but not all, and not even most. I mean, it's like any other profession. There's terrible, there's poor, there's average, there's above average, there's good, and there's great. That's every profession.
Just because you have a position doesn't mean you're going to do it as well as some other people. And if people think they're all perfect, then you're wrong. You just don't know how it actually works in reality.
Sure. Bruce Koslick got to be an NFL head coach twice. That tells you the system is broken.
All right, so we got 1 hour of politics. We got 43 minutes of sports. That's not bad.
Not bad.
Let's break it here. So I can
take a break.
Yeah, and we'll be back at 9:00 to see the convention. But this is a good thing we got going here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Although y'all are doggone wrong, but I'm just kidding.
Hey, by the way, before we leave, did anybody realize Randall Cunningham is the spiritual leader of the Raiders? He is their
he is.
He is their pastor.
Yes,
should be.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Should be in Canada.
His kids
he
are
should
all
be
terrific athletes, but none of them play football. He's got a daughter who's a.
Hey, look, I gotta clip this. But after the convention, we got to talk about Mariota and Carr because we'll have about 4 days to see how that plays out. Because
sure,
I think they're setting up Derek to be sliced and diced. All right, we'll be back in a little bit, folks.
Indeed, we shall.
And hey.
I should mention one thing.
No. Mention nothing because we gotta go.
He just big timed you.
I gotta move, and I gotta start a new stream. And I gotta do it now so I can get you new links. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right.
See you. Okay. All right. See you. Okay. All right. And broadcast.